So, I know we're kind of like saying, he's at this great place, and obviously ASICS helped him get there. He's collaborated with so many brands. What missteps has he made, or what has he not done that we wish he would have done, or wish he had done instead of something else?
I wish he would have collaborated with more homegrown organic boutiques, as Paolo likes to say. I think that he missed a large opportunity in New York alone to kind of mingle and collab with concepts, to collab with Extra Butter, to collab with other stores outside of Colette. You know what I'm saying? Like we went to Paris, all right, cool. But like realistically, you had people that grew up respectively close to you that you could have worked with and made projects even bigger for those around you, with you. And I think that could have been a testament to like his legacy. Like it's not just about Kith, it's about more. It says Kith and kin, which is friends and family, but like realistically, like those would be friends and family too, because you guys are doing the same thing in the same space. And I think that was the one thing that I kind of didn't understand earlier on. If you were, around the area, you kind of felt almost like I wouldn't even say like a friendly rivalry. It was more like I must destroy kind of attitude to like those smaller stores that were around Kith at the time or growing at the time. Sure, Ame, I think, is off the picture on that only because they're obviously friends prior to. And I'm pretty sure Ronnie helped him in a lot of different areas to get to where he is now, whether it's outsourcing, resources, people, connections. At one point, there was a big fuss with Ame and Nike over there. I forget the name of the runner, but he got a cease and desist from Nike and was potentially getting sued, and somehow that went away. I'm just gonna take a wild guess and say he got some help from maybe Ronnie. So like I understand that, but Ame is really not like a footwear threat. Sure, he's doing New Balance, but it's not where he has a sneaker room and it's all shoes that he's been collaborating on or collaborating with. I just feel like he could have done more along the lines of, I think, smaller boutique footwear brands collaborating instead of jumping to doing cereal like he did. Okay, perfect. He did cereal, and he could have did Extra Butter does movies, so movie, cereal, popcorn. It could have been like an easy conjunction to make that happen seamlessly and be the benefit for the entire community, as opposed to it being like, I do cereal, fuck what you guys do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked about that years ago, Mike, how it'd be really cool if like some of these boutiques work together, versus having that kind of, I'm gonna cut your throat, I'm gonna try to, put you out of business or whatever.
I mean, you can have that rivalry though. You can be like, hey,
yeah, you
I
can
like what you're doing. Oh, I see you're doing that. I'm gonna do it too, but we're gonna figure it out and work it. And like mine might be better than yours, and then you come back and do, instead of being like, yeah, I don't want you. We're both selling shoes. You're 10 blocks from me. If I'm doing that shoe, I don't want them doing that shoe.
Yeah.
That's unhealthy.
Because you got to think about like the 25th anniversary of the Gel Light 3, right? That's what made it so great, was that everybody was doing sort of the same thing on the same shoe.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, this month is Extra Butter. This month is Concept. So who's gonna do the best Gel Light 3 this year?
And if you remember, all the shops got access to those shoes too. So Extra Butter would be selling the Hannon shoe, and Concept would sell it too. So that was a really cool thing that ASICS did. That was a really good point Mike brought up, because I think about it now and I'm like kind of sitting back here and I'm like, well, so one of the things I've done like the last year is I've kind of like gone to a lot of breweries, right? And like seen what that industry is doing. That industry, they embrace other breweries. It's a really weird thing. If you ever notice on how like they collaborate with each other, breweries collaborate with each other. So that'd be kind of like Concepts and Kith like collaborating with each other. You know what I mean? But those guys all root for each other. And I don't understand why the sneaker and the streetwear world is still very cutthroat. They could probably get somewhere else. Like Mike said, it'd be really cool if you had like a Extra Butter and a Kith do something really unique. And, it could possibly be the biggest shoe ever if you think about it.
I mean, I'll put it to you like this: like the 25th anniversary, you got a homage from Kith, and I saw prior to the 25th anniversary, it was a Gel Light 5. If you guys remember the Deathless 5 from Extra Butter, it was a hodgepodge. Actually, Bernie posted it not too long ago, I think, or maybe he didn't post it. He asked like, "What do you guys want to see that I haven't shown?" And it was a hodgepodge of the DL5 on a Gel Light 5. Super fire. That was 2 years before homage. But they weren't okay to do it, and I always I bring it up all the time. I'm like, damn, I would love to see that shoe. I would love to if they put into production. Like, I don't care if they make 30. I need a pair, like that type of stuff. And then to see homage pop up because ASIC at the time wasn't doing What Does, because that's more or less a What The collaboration. It was just it kind of befuddled me a little bit to be like, okay, well, I understand that Ronnie is the domineering person in ASICs right now. Of course, that's always going to be, I think, the situation until Mita. I think Mita is super fire too. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, as far as like wacky collaborations go on Gel Light 3, but that's not what we're talking about. But like, Ronnie is the lead. So like, I always question, and Bernie will never tell me, and I don't think anybody at Kith will ever tell me. I was like, why wouldn't they let you do that DL5? But 2 years later, they let Ronnie do a What The? And that makes me always question like why brands don't collaborate, because it's like a tier 0 thing, to answer your question. So like, people fight to be the best brand to get to tier 0 so you could have the best product. And that's a Nike thing. Not every brand has a tier 0. They have their community. I forget the other name. You know what I'm talking about. It's like neighborhood 1, neighborhood 2, over whatever. So like, if you're competing for tier 0, you don't want to work with somebody because maybe their idea is better than yours. And then what happens is they're like, oh, you know what? They knocked it out of the box. We should give them more stuff. And now all of a sudden, what you were fighting for to get got lost because you work with someone. But I mean, that should make you work harder. But brands are really creating this divide between stores and people. I mean, if you look at releases, you have to go to 3 different stores to get a tier 0 shoe, right? Mm-hmm. You don't go to all the stores to get an off-white. You go to 3 stores to get an off-white. So like, the brand is doing that to create hype. Then stores are doing it to create hype. So it becomes this thing. People don't care about the product. They care about the hype of the product to make sure that they're the person with said hype. And that makes everybody fight, I think. But what do I know?
No, I think that makes sense. And like, that kind of brings me back to like something that I think about with Ronnie, which is he did the Diodora collab, and that seemed to be his last sort of small runner sneaker brand collaboration. After that, it was like Adidas, Nike, ASICS, New Balance, and then I'm not really going below that. And that kind of bothered me because I always thought that, given the space that we're in now, where Nike sort of dominates, and if Nike's not in your store, then your boutique or your store is sort of going to go under, essentially. Wouldn't it make sense to sort of make it so that within, especially the New York scene, there are a lot more competing brands? And I guess to your point, Mike, focusing on those tier 0 releases and being the tier 0 brands or boutique for your area is like the only thing that sort of matters. But it would have been nice. It would have been cool to see him do something with Kangaroos. It would have been nice. Would have been cool to see him do something with Karhu. Those brands, I think they would have latched on a little bit better in the States if they had someone like Ronnie's cosign. Because Karhu got that big bump from Kanye West, for that 3 or 6 month period. And if Ronnie had jumped on that, man, Karhu might be a totally different brand right now. You know what I mean? And so for me, that was always something that I always thought was, I don't want to say a misstep, but it was something that sort of disappointed me about Ronnie. Like, he had this platform, he had this power, and for a while he could have used it any way he wanted to, especially when Adidas was in the height of Boost, and they had their sort of, they were over Jordan brand for a little while, and that was the point when the market was open. There were so many brands that could have been anywhere right now, and it seemed like Ronnie was just like, nope, I'm gonna go to Adidas. I'm gonna go to Nike. I'm gonna go to Jordan Brand. He hasn't done a Jordan release, but ultimately focusing on those top tier brands made the market what it is sort of today, where we don't have the Carhus, we don't have the Kangaroos, we don't have Diadora the way it used to be. And that's sort of a shame to me because I like the diversity. I don't like that if I want Asics or if I want this other brand, I can't get it because the boutique that used to sell it closed down because they couldn't push Nike, right? So that seemed like a misstep to me. Or that
Diodora and Rouge, for example, I think those are just totally different. Like that's a manufacturing marketing issue. I don't think it's a boutique issue.
no.
If you think about the Diodoras, the price points on some of those, they're so high. People don't want, people would rather spend $180 on a pair of Jordans because let's face it, we know the name. That's a name you grew up with. Diodora, if you happen to go to Europe or Rouge when you were a kid like I did, I knew those names. Did I love those names? Not necessarily. But, I think that, again, I don't think he goes to the manufacturer and says, I want to do this shoe. I think it's a combination of both sometimes. And again, I don't know the science behind that, but, I think, maybe they do sometimes ask for particular shoes, and maybe sometimes the manufacturer says, okay, yeah, we'll give you that shoe, but you got to do this one too. Carhu's a nice shoe too. But did any of us own Carhu as a kid? I didn't. Did I know who Carhu was? I didn't. So it's kind of like, and they make a nice shoe. But I own maybe two pairs, but I don't.
They don't make a lot
I
of
don't
them.
see.
If you, in retrospect, to like what we're saying now, is that yes, he could have put a bigger foothold on those brands, sure. But realistically, if you look at their models, they're all loosely based in the same thing. So like you can't go to Carhu and look at their models and be like, okay, this one that's an Air Max style. I'm just saying like Nike in reference. You can look at Cortez, you could look at Air, you could look at Air Max, you could look at SB, you could look at Dunk. You have a wide array of choices to choose from when you look at a Nike as opposed to a smaller brand. And when it comes to doing those collaborations like a Carhu or a Diodora, like I think the Diodora he had a better shot at just because it was actually pretty popular. It was pretty prominent too at the time that everybody was doing collaborations on Diodora. But as far as like the Carhu goes, I don't think that they ever had enough steam, even with Yeezy wearing them and co-signing on it, for it to be one of those things where you have a variation of models, which is what you're seeing at Puma right now. Puma's the same problem. They're using that RS whatever and the other model. They're doing just a million colors on two models. That's going to die very soon. People are going to get tired of that because there's no variation to the brand. It becomes the brand's responsibility to take whatever they're given from these cosigns or these collaborations to then innovate and continue to create. You're not going to, just like Kith, you're not going to gain any more traction by doing the same thing all the time. Me personally, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Come on, Machado, get in here. What's up, man?
I know.
No, I'm good, man. Look, you guys are a lot more in tune with it than I am. I think as far as like you said, Mike, that they put out an Adidas shoe, they put out an Asics shoe that did flop and didn't really do so great. So I think he was just maybe a little timid to the idea of, oh, well, I'm going to do an R1 coil that, a select full of, us and, maybe a couple other 100 people like know what that is. Or I'm going to do this Carhu, but if it doesn't get off the ground, then at that point, Ronnie's losing money. And I'm sure Ronnie doesn't want to fail. He doesn't want it to seem like he's failed at anything. So that, and, like you said, that Adidas shoe that came out 4911 did not, those sat for a while. The Puma COA, for as great as they were, sat for a while. So I think it really could have been like, even as popular as Ronnie is, I don't know if his input may have brought Carhu or Rouge to the limelight the way that it did with Asics and that he did with, David Z all those years ago.
For the record, I like that Adidas
Some of
shoe
them.
actually. I do like it.
For the record, I knew you were going to say that.
I don't know why people didn't like that shoe. I just like that model. It's a great model. But it's one of those things. It's like sometimes it's it's another shoe, the EQT that I wore that when I was younger too. So sometimes it's kind of that nostalgia feeling where you're tied to something because of previous history. Karu, I own a few pairs. I bought the Concepts collaboration that came out. That was a nice shoe. The materials were nice, but like Mike said, Karu was like, if you ever look at their catalog and look at what they have, they're all the freaking same if you think about it.
Every shoe looks the same.
Yeah, they have fusions, but I'm like, I can't tell the difference between models. So, and that could be why Ronnie said, I'm not doing anything with Karu. We don't know.
Well, the other thing too is like he'll go, okay, I'll do it, but let's do a fusion. But then the brand doesn't have enough money to make a new last, to make a new mold, to fuse two brand. Like they don't have enough to do that, and then pay Ronnie his $100,000. You know what I'm like? I'm just making up a number. Like they don't have enough to go, okay, well, let's make these three shoes, combine an upper, and then pray that everybody loves it. Like they don't want to do it. They don't have the marketing dollars to push it. So then it becomes one of those things where it's like, well, what are you gonna do? What I can do is I can offer you this. I can put it in the store for your base models. We can do your inline stuff, and maybe they'll get a write-up from Kith. But for the most part, if you want him to do something on it, like even if you brought that to me, like you're like, hey Mike, could you do this? I'd be like, well, that's a shoe you guys have been putting out this entire time. I'm going to put suede on it. You have suede. What am I going to do? So like, I need to reinvent your shoe to help you. But if you don't want to give me the money to do it, I'm not coming out of pocket for it.
Yeah.
But it's probably better when people were at the house, because then I would have stayed out of the conversation a little bit.
No, this is good. Like, so I mean, I feel conflicted because I'm always like, Ronnie, you're, he's different today than he was 5 years ago, and where his brand is today is different than it was, 5 years ago. But I always think about how people use their platform and how people use their power to influence a brand or to influence a design. And so, for me, I'm, I could give a shit about Converse Coke, like I don't need to see it again. I really don't, I'd rather you. And yes, I get it. Like Karhu is not a brand that most of us are looking for or checking for, because we've kind of seen what they have and it's not changing. And if I want it, I can always go get it. But it would be nice to see if Ronnie could do something, right? And I don't know. I know, Paolo, you said that like the price point of like someone like Ruse or Diadora is always like a turnoff. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, because they just dropped this Packers Raekwon Theodora after what, 3 years, 4 years of like us waiting for it, and people went crazy. People went nuts. And I'm like, who has been checking for Diadora for like 5 years? Nobody, right? So,
yeah, but you also gotta look at it from the other perspective though. People went nuts for it, but how much of the percentage of those people are resellers though? So think about that for a second before. It's kind of hard to, a Rouge shoe that sells for 300 euros in Europe that you can buy here. I would wonder how many of those actually get shipped to the US for people to buy. I would probably say less than 2%. And that's just a guess, but like, do I like Rouge? Sure. Would I spend $300 on a Rouge? Probably not. I get New Balance for 200 instead. And it's a brand I associate with. So that comes down to the marketing side of it. And I think Ronnie may even find an uphill battle using a Ruse to really substantiate kind of, a collaboration, with it. He's done stuff with filling pieces before. And I don't think that stuff ever sold out all the time. Well-made stuff made in Portugal, of course. But he helped that brand, obviously, in some case. Yeah, absolutely. Because I didn't know who they were until he started doing some stuff with them. But did they sell out? No. And I think that's probably a product of the price point or people that co-sign them. I mean, I don't know who wore them, or I'd have to look back to see who actually wore those shoes. But again, it kind of becomes those Diodoras. I totally forgot about those we were even releasing, and I don't really give a shit. It's kind of like whatever. But it's a good point. Like people went crazy for them, but how many of those people actually put them on their feet? I just don't know. It's hard to say.
Another interesting aspect to think about is where we are in terms of reselling. So 2015, 2014, we didn't have StockX, right? We didn't have StockX, we didn't have GOAT. So the love that Ronnie felt was genuine, I think. If someone was lining up, it was more genuine for a shoe than it is now. Oh, you're giving me that look? You're giving me that look?
As a person who's running releases at Kith, I can tell you firsthand, it was not all love.
I didn't say it was all love. I'm saying it was more love than it is now. So, like for me, I think 2014, 2013, it was different. It was a different world when Ronnie released the shoe versus what it is now when Ronnie releases a shoe. Because people aren't buying that shoe for the most part to keep. And I think there were a large part of people that were buying to resell then, but I think now that's everything. Like everything, every collaboration, everything that's sold, that's special is going to be something that's resell bait. And so for Ronnie, it's a little different thinking about what he was putting out then that was selling out versus what he's putting out now that's selling out.
But do you think that I'm kind of the feeling that the manufacturing numbers have increased on a lot of this stuff now, and I don't know how accurate that is. But Dave, think about this for a second.
Yeah.
So Concepts, we were able to get those dunks with the special packaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could we normally get those years ago? Probably not. So I'm going to venture to say that's the example I'm going to give is that they probably produced a ton of those with that special packaging. I don't know what the number is, but I would venture to say that a lot of these manufacturers and the boutiques, they're producing more now because they say, okay, demand is outweighing the supply still, so we can even create even more until we get, it's economics, economics. They haven't gotten to that equilibrium yet where the demand and supply meet each other. So they're still doing this. So, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I think they've increased production on a lot of this stuff. I really do. You don't hear numbers anymore. People talk about numbers. We used to talk about numbers way back. Mike, you remember when Concepts released the tea parties? They're like, oh, there's only 98 pairs in Boston and there's like 300 in New York. What the fuck? People are mad. But you don't hear numbers
anymore.
Be
mad at the split.
Yeah, people don't talk about numbers anymore because it doesn't matter because the demands increase quite a bit. You have to look at it from that perspective because, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I think people are producing more. I just gave you the example, the Concepts dunk, the turducken. You and I were able to get pairs through invoicing. Does that mean, and a lot of people were too, that didn't go to Concepts when they first started like I did.
Machado, did you catch that? And they got them through invoicing. I don't know if that's an inside job or what happened there, but
yeah, I'm being honest. It's friends and family. They call it friends and family. All right. So, but there were people that got them friends and family.
You got access to shoes. You've been around Concepts and built up a personal relationship and rapport. Yep. I would assume Dave has as well. I'm sure Machado has his stores that he deals with. I have my stores that I deal with. As older, more learned people in the culture, community, sneakers, whatever have you, you go to a store, you like the employees, you spend your money, you spend your time. Yep. You guys are linked in the same things. You built that rapport to get your invoice. Doesn't necessarily mean that the numbers change. I'm not going to lie to you. The only time that I've really seen numbers change, because I've tried to adapt to people who use bots, because that's really where the name of the game is right now. So I have a couple different people that I talk to, and I find out numbers just to be like, hey, on their back end, how many pairs do they have? So when you hear a store has 700 pairs of a shoe that's a tier 0 account, and you think to yourself, which is what I bring up in meetings with people, like, hey, why is one store not getting 0 because they're not a tier 0 account? It kind of doesn't make sense. Like those numbers, they don't they haven't really changed. The only place where I've really seen numbers change over time is Supreme and Supreme's back end with opening more stores. They opened more stores, they got bought out twice, and now you're looking at, instead of there being 100,000 units, there's 500,000 units, which is why like Supreme has lost it. But Nike doesn't really change their numbers that much, just for traditional reasons. ASICS doesn't really change their numbers too much. They change their minimums from, I believe it was 750 to 1,300 as far as doing the collaboration stuff. So if you're going to do it, you got to buy into it. But I mean, for the most part, they don't change like we change as customers and clients of stores. Like we've adapted to understanding that I would rather spend my money at one store and miss things at other stores than try and spread myself thin and buy it at multiple stores, have a false relationship, and people go, yeah, fuck that guy, whatever, we're good. And then you miss everywhere. So you have your store you deal with and keep it that way, is what I would say. And the numbers thing kind of stays. It really does. It might change. Jordan's jumped. They fucked themselves with bots when Jordan's jumped because they were getting bought out by bots. You remember this, 2013, 14. They're like, oh, Jordans are doing great. Let's make more. Then they made 300,000 pairs and they were sitting because bots were overbuying on the system. So like, oh, we're not going to do that anymore. So you'll see multiple releases of the same amount to make sure that it sells out. That's all they've done. They've changed 100,000 pairs into 25,000, 40,000, 25,000 store release. They've actually learned to beat out the stores that usually sell stuff because they do early releases. Now, if you do an early release and I have a store and I have 48 pairs and you just did it early, any customers that were going to come to me to shop, I just lost.
You're probably going to see a lot like what AIM did with that New Balance, where you had to pre-order that New Balance. You're going to see a lot of stores start doing that. It just
look at Hat Club.
Yeah, it's more cost effective. Think about it. Oh, I know I got to make 100,000 shoes. Perfect. I don't have to worry about, having excess 10,000 pairs left in inventory. So it's going to happen.
I want to go back to Ronnie really quickly and talk about his sort of friends and family invoicing system. I'm not lucky enough or cool enough to ever be a part of it because I've never actually been able to hit on anything. So I've never actually purchased anything directly through Kith. But what do you guys think of that? I feel like it's one of the better, sort of loyalty programs out there.
I'll speak on this one. So like typically if you purchase, I'll go with their raffle system first. So when they started raffling through their online website and people were like, oh, I didn't get to enter, I didn't get to do this. What they were doing was they were having 2 to 3 day pickups on their raffles alone. So like if you entered and didn't win, you might've gotten an email the next day without a re-entry or the day after that without a re-entry. So like I kudos them for that. Instead of giving people multiple chances to win the same shoe, they just used the first raffle list. That was one. Then they integrated to the online raffle system where it was more of a loyalty program where if you purchased a pair of shoes via Kith, via New Balance, ASICS, whatever, you were then in turn giving a slot because it wasn't for people in New York. It was for people across the country is really what it was based for. Because those people were the people who were trying online because most of the time, if you wanted a shoe from Kith, you were going to get it, which is why I'm not on a loyalty program for certain shoes because I got everything that I've ever bought from in-store. And I actually asked them, I'm like, yo, how am I not on loyalty program? What the fuck? And they're like, yeah, your account is based in the store. So like, we don't have any transaction history from you online for those types of shoes. So yes, to your point, it's a great loyalty program if you're able to acquire a shoe. Now, if you're not able to acquire a shoe, how the hell do I get on the loyalty program? I mean, I couldn't even answer that for you because I've asked. I'm like, I'm just confused how you expect new customers and new clients to get in there. So like certain shoes you will see a spike, certain shoes you will see a random drop, certain shoes you will see a restock of inventory. Problem is, though they are second to Nike as far as bot protection, they're not impenetrable. So like even when they do those shock drops, what happens is if you're not on it within the first 2 minutes, they will block you. Like I've gotten shoes on Kith with my hands without even knowing shit. Like, oh, it just popped up. I'll get it. Cool. And then I've gone on at the time of release and missed. So like it's a hit or miss situation. But I mean, even their bot protection is from my guy who gets everything bot wise. their protection is alongside Nike. So when people are like, oh, they bought it up, people are on it. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, I've actually hit before, but I think it's because I was on that loyalty program. Any New Balance, I usually get access to it. But again, they don't give you access to everything. So I think it's smart what they're doing. They're using a marketing tactic, if you think about it, and it's what everyone does anyway. So why not do it that way?
Now, Rico.
Yeah, as far as Kith goes, I mean, I've gotten some stuff on the loyalty program, but I don't really know how it works because I think it was the palette was like the first shoe that I've gotten on a loyalty program or that I've even been offered on a loyalty program. And prior to that, like maybe all of last year, I bought like maybe a shirt or like maybe 2 shirts from Kith. Like, so I don't, it's, you know what I mean? Like I know for certain that there are other people who cop more Kith, but they're not getting access. And I don't really know why. Like I got access to the Kithmas 992, to the Air Force, those Knicks Air Force Ones. And it's like, well, how, fam? Like, cause I bought a shirt like in the last year, like knowing that there are other people who got, the Tokyo pack or, and all those, like I've missed on, who've gotten colorists, who've gotten other stuff. But here I am with all the access, and I don't really know why.
Well, for all we know, they could be running an algorithm on your purchase history. So, you bought those Knicks colorways ASICs many years ago. Maybe that's in there and they know that. So let's give them access to this because for whatever reason, I don't know.
And especially like when 252s went out to friends and family or to like, cause he was sending those out to like ASICs, like collectors and stuff. And I mean, I definitely know people who have maybe 2 or 3 Ronnie collabs and I'm going in my closet, like with him on like Instagram Live, like, oh, it's really cool that you got the access to those Ronnie Fieg. I'm opening box after box after box after box of Ronnie Fieg collabs. And, and so I don't really know how it works. And I mean, it's cool if they're like, oh, he bought from us in 2013. I guess we'll start giving him access, fucking 7 years later. That's fine with me.
I feel like it's a good thing. It's, all the bugs in it aren't worked out perfectly. It's not the most in tune system, but it's better than most of the releases. Sneakers, it's better than sneakers, and it's not saying much, but that's saying something. So
definitely. You guys are forgetting how many people are online trying to get this shit and bots. So like even when you look at their history as far as people who get access, there is an algorithm. 100% there is an algorithm. And what happens is a lot of people forget that when you press refresh while you're trying to do a purchase or when you're trying to wait for a page to load because you're trying to beat a bot out, they're calculating how many times you tried to refresh a page for a release. You look like a bot and then you start getting blocked. So like you might be a casual shopper like me, where like it'll be 10 o'clock, I'll hit it, I'll go. If I get it, I get it. I don't, I'll see you later. But then you have people who are like, oh, and then oh, the screen lock, the screen jam. Oh, I'm not a bot. I got to capture. I got the like. People are forgetting. I hate digital. If there's one thing I hate, it's digital. Call me the camp out for a reason. Because if you tell me your shoe's dropping somewhere, peace, I'm out. I'll be there. Like I'd rather sit online and wait for 2 days than fucking sit on my computer twitching, drinking for me to possibly hit online or in the shock drop because it's never going to happen. I'm not a bot and it just randomly happens. So like when it comes to the customer profile, it's important. If there's one thing I would say that stores need to do, they need to start maybe paying a little bit more attention to the client profiles. Like I know it's a little bit intricate, it's a little bit more detailed, you need a little bit more information, but I would rather give a store on a secure web server more information about me, my taste, my likes, my preferences, than going, let me make a profile, because I could have 800 profiles Like I know personally, I have several profiles in store at Kith because different people make different profiles for me. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And it's the same thing online. You could have multiple profiles that just don't sync. I have a camp out email and it gets loyalty program. I never check it for loyalty program, but sometimes I go look, I'm like, why the hell do I have loyalty program? And I never use it. So like, it's one of those things where stores just need to step up. If we're going to go digital and this is what we're going to do, maybe we do it right, is all I'm saying.
All right. So any last thoughts on Ronnie? We're going to close this out, and just anything we want to see in the future that we're waiting on, that we're excited about?
Ivy Brand and Kith.
You're right.
I mean, I tried, buddy.
I'm always one to really kind of, tear him down and make fun of Ronnie, but it's all love, really. So I'll admit that he's done a lot. Obviously, he should be proud of what he's done. Obviously, I'm not sure if my interest in Kith is there actually at this point in my life. I haven't gone on their website in a long time. Obviously things change. Even concepts. I still look at their stuff here and there, but I don't. They have a new mobile app that I downloaded last week. I looked at it. I was like, I'm gonna look at that, and I didn't really look at it much. I think in terms of, I think some of these boutiques need to, and this is just for Ronnie, but I think they really got to step out and like do something different. And Mike just gave a good example, like, a collab with the Ivy brand or a collab with like even your brand, Mike, the Camp Out, like something like that would be really cool, where a big brand steps in and says, hey, I want to work with you, Dave, or you, Mike, and like do something unique and different. For you, Mike, it'd be cool because you're part of that area and that's where you're from. I think brands need to start looking at that a little more. I think the whole influencer marketing, it's going to be a forever, obviously, influencer marketing, but I think that's just boring to me. Like just because some dude's wearing some shoes, I'm not going to go buy him. 10 years ago, maybe. But just because a guy's wearing some shoes, I don't care. If I like them, I'll buy them. If I don't, then I don't, I have a jacket on right now. It's from Target. It was $30 because I have this dog with really sharp teeth right now. So if he destroys it, it's fine. Some of these brands, these boutiques, they were small businesses. We have to remember that they were small businesses at one point. They're now large businesses. And I think some of them are forgetting their roots. And I think, the recommendation I just made was it would be cool to see them work with like a local small business, especially during these times where things are really hard. I think right now is the best time for them to really step in and do something different. And I don't know, Ron, I didn't really follow Ron. He was doing that during the pandemic to help the local community or anything, but like, I don't know if he did anything, but to me, that's cool. Like if you do something different and wild, that's going to grab more attention. Not like, oh, kids doing another collab, except this time we're going to do Pepsi, not Coca-Cola, for example. But, so I think that's kind of my 2 cents on it. I want to see these brands not forget where they come from. And I still think Extra Butter is still at that level, though. They're still very, like, they still think about the little guy. For the record, their Diodora collabs are better than Ronnie's. I'll say that much. But I think, I think Kith and, others, I'm not going to just say them, but they need to look at some of these smaller businesses and see how they can do what they can do to help them. And especially at this time right now, that's kind of my recommendation, I guess, or my hope.
I agree. I haven't seen, much like you guys said, I mean, I haven't seen what Ronnie's really been doing, if he is helping out in New York during the pandemic or anything like that. I guess what I really want to see is him kind of pull the curtain back, like maybe just a little bit more and show us like more about where the stuff is coming from, where these ideas are coming from, and, what's inspiring it. Because, I mean, it kind of just seemed like, well, I wanted to do this thing with this palette of colors that I did. And that was like really that. Whereas I guess more of the thought process would be really cool to see. I mean, I feel like Ronnie's a kind of guy who plays his cards close to the vest, something like that, something more getting out in the community. The pandemic is still going very, very strong. So, I mean, not as much on the East Coast as it is here in Arizona, because over here we're fucking stupid. But like, just more in that, more remembering your roots, more community outreach, things like that.
Closing thoughts is I get Brand's. I understand his direction. I understand why he's going in his direction. If there's one thing I would like to see a little bit more of, I would like to see smaller collaborations with a more local impact as opposed to such a broader impact. He's got stores in New York, Miami, LA, Tokyo. So like, why not have that be part of your niche now, where like those local brands become part of your brand and you help house something else. But I mean, if history's taught us anything, with other stores that are local to him, he wouldn't work, then he's not going to work with smaller brands in his new ventures. Like, I mean, if I'm being a realist about the situation, unless there's some kind of nuance to the situation. But I mean, I'm sure he's going to have a kid soon. So Kith Kids, which we didn't mention either, is probably going to be a more domineering section of Kith. I'm almost positive he's going to have a kid soon. So like, realistically, you're going to see a transition. Oh, she is. I thought I saw a picture, but like,
he posted.
Sam
Congratulations, Ronnie.
He did?
If you're watching.
Yeah, so like realistically, you're going to see it's going to migrate in that direction, be more youthful. And as the kid grows, you're going to see more of that influence on his brand, because it's your brand is always indicative of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I want to see a little bit of a separation. Like, I feel like it's there, but I want to see it like really flushed out between the Kith and the Ronnie. And like Ronnie, I always feel like has more heartfelt, more down to earth sort of things that he brings to the table. And Kith always feels like this big, giant corporate, hey, I'm just trying to make the biggest thing, the biggest impact that I can. And I want to see a little bit more of a separation of that and get more Ronnie, where he's doing things that he likes and doing things that, like, you know, really feel special and that are heartfelt and that aren't just, to be completely frank, just focused on the money. I think Kith is going to get you that. Obviously, Kith is going to make you money. I think you could do some special stuff on the side that's not so much targeted at just, you know, creating ultimate hype, getting everyone to just buy or resell or whatever it is. You know, it's been, we're on the 10-year anniversary of Kith, right? So I'm sure we're going to see some special stuff, and you know, I think I look forward to it. See what happens.